Good morning, guys. Good morning. I'm here with Dr. Tara Tanksley Stallings, and she invited me on her podcast to talk about bringing awareness to sexual abuse. I briefly talked about it before in some of my lives as I was healing and going through rehab and recovery with alcoholism. But as I am continuously healing and having her in my life, not just as a hairstylist that keep his hair together, but as a mentor, as a counselor, as a woman of God that I can go to. Um, she has given me a safe space to open up about a lot of things that I suppressed during my time of alcoholism. And so today she invited me on her podcast to open up about it. And I am excited about this part of my life, being very open and raw as I always am about everything else. So, y'all prepare to get some healing going, get some hope going. And I pray that this is helpful as we go through this process to know that it is okay to heal and have a therapist and have Jesus in your life, because we need both of them, Jesus and a therapist. And God has placed her in the earth and walking in her purpose as a counselor and a therapist to help women and men walk in their purpose. So I'm no longer going to talk because y'all know I can talk a lot. Dr. Stallings.
All right, we're gonna get started. Let's go through our intro. Oh, something happened to my green room. You know, when you go live, you have technical difficulties.
They do.
We hope you enjoyed this show.
You got technical difficulties. Something going on with my screen. That's okay. We're gonna get through it though.
That's right.
We're gonna get through it.
Tara is a counseling coach who addresses real issues that plague many women today. Issues like church hurt, disappointment, anxiety, depression, and many more. You will be inspired, educated, and empowered on how to receive the help and healing needed to move forward. If you have real issues, then Tara has real solutions. Let's talk with Tara.
Hello, you guys. Oh, let me see. What's got going on. When I tell you I have technical difficulties today, but it's okay. That means the show is going to be good. That's right. That's the indicator that the show is really going to be good. Now my screen is green.
It's okay.
It's okay. So guess what? So for my live audience, you guys may not see our face, but you can hear our voice. I know sometimes I have, but it's green, but it's okay. So thank you all for joining us today. I am Dr. Tara T. Stallings, and this is our Let's Talk Tara podcast. I am your host again, Dr. Tara T. Stallings, counselor, coach, and spiritual consultant. I address real issues that plague our personal, relational, family, spiritual development, our health, by providing educational, empowering, and inspirational information. So today, listen, I'm so excited. You know, make sure you guys are already following me or following me. If you watch it on YouTube, make sure you like and share and like. And make sure you tag somebody in this so that they can get this information to empower, to transform their life. Remember, I go live on my podcast every fourth, like bro man from the fourth floor, every fourth Saturday. So today, if you guys have been following me, we have been talking about sexual abuse. I started this year's podcast off about sexual abuse, and we're going to continue talking about sexual abuse because it has plagued so many families, so many individuals, that I think it's not getting the attention. Well, I know that it's not getting the attention that it needs, so that we can break these generational curses, that we can break the stigmas, that we can break the behaviors. But you can't break something that you don't understand. You know, it's easy to blame someone or point the finger, but there's always a root before there's a fruit. So today we're going to talk. I have my great guest here. Look, you guys may know her as Sister Dunn, but Jerry Honda Dunn. And she agreed to come on and share about some of her traumas sexually. So, and I just want to give a kind of brief overview of what we've been talking about in the past as it relates to sexual trauma. Now, one thing I do want to do before we get started, I have to give this warning. Some of the content that we share today may be triggering. So if you are a victim, or you know someone that's watching, if you're in the room with someone that is a victim of sexual abuse, molestation, sexual violence, this may trigger them. So you may want to go into a private area, or you yourself, you may not be ready to listen or watch this podcast. So let me get started today. Thank you, Darianda.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
So we've already talked before, and I just want you to share a little bit of your story as it relates to sexual trauma, because what happens a lot of times is, as growing up as women, as children, what we think is sexual trauma or sexual abuse, sexual violence, we don't look at it as that. We just dismiss it as, oh, I got myself caught up into something, but we don't call it we don't call a thing a thing. We like to call a thing something else to sweep over it, so that it doesn't sound bad, it doesn't look bad, and we can hide behind that trauma. But one thing I know about trauma of any kind, it shows up. You can't sweep it up under the rug, because guess what? Anything, dust flies everywhere.
Yes,
Even if you sweeping it up under the rug, it's going to come out in some other area. So would you share a little bit? I know we don't have time for you to go through your whole story today, but would you share a little bit with me what you were sharing about the trauma that you experienced?
Yes, ma'am. So I am a recovering alcoholic, or I like to say an advocate for alcoholism, by the grace of God, 4 years sober. During therapy and during that time in rehab, a lot of things came up that I suppressed, that I didn't remember. And like we discussed, you said that the brain is a powerful thing. God formed our brain to be a protector, to keep us from a lot more hurt than we actually go through. And so I believe a lot of things happened to me, and that caused the alcoholism. It was a part of things that I went through in college. I was raised in a Christian home by my grandmother, and very strict. And so when I went out to college, I got wild. I had a good time. I was free. I didn't have to go home. And so a promiscuous spirit, because like you say, we have to call these spirits. My sister, we name spirits, and my sister, we name them. So a promiscuous spirit came about, and I was just running rampant, just doing crazy stuff, trying to fill a void of not having my dad there, of not having my mom there, of just trying to figure out why so much was going on. And I started dating a guy, and he was older than me. He had money, all these great things. And it became real serious. And so I ended up getting kicked out of school, but I couldn't go home to be a disappointment to my family, because they had them sent me off and thought I was down there doing my work. And so I started dating him. And then it went from this fairy tale to like this nightmare. He started locking me in the house. He would come home high, drunk, whatever, beating on me, and, just talking to me any kind of way. And it started with the verbal abuse, and then it went into the physical abuse. And my friends, they would call, "You okay? We haven't seen you in a while." And it went from him like just choking me sometimes to him, like dashing my face, and I have black eyes and bust lips, and my family calling like, when you coming home? And I know I can't go home because I can't explain. I'm kicked out of school and I'm getting my behind beat. So I'm like, okay, God, what is this? And so I felt like it was love seeing previous things happening in my life to other people. I said, well, he.
I want you to go too fast.
Okay.
Because you said something. You saw some previous behavior. So you thought it was okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is where we get caught up a lot.
Yes,
we see it becomes normal to be verbally abused, physically abused, misused, and sexually abused. So we say, oh, it's okay. And that's we develop a mindset that, oh, you know what, this must be love, because that's all that we've seen in life.
Yes, ma'am. And when that happened, he was buying me things. He was taking me places. He would show up with roses. He would come and I would leave and then I would go back.
Mm-hmm.
And I would leave and I would go back. And it was to the point, I didn't share this in there, but it was to the point one night I was at a party and it was homecoming for South Carolina State, and he came to get me. And I was taking too long because I was trying to get all my stuff together. And it was like, your boyfriend waiting on you. So I go outside and I was like, I'm coming. So he started cussing and fussing, getting out. So I'm like, okay, I'm coming. So I grabbed my stuff. So my homeboys, they're standing on the porch. So I was like, I got it. I'm okay. They being protected. And I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
They're being protectors. And so I start to put my stuff in the car. And as I'm opening the door, he starts to pull off. And he starts to drag me down the road. Wow. And it's either let go and knowing he had a truck, the car was going to roll over me, or hold on and just get drugged. So I just held on. And so I'm screaming. So they running behind the truck and he starts speeding up. So I say, stop running, because that'll make him kind of slow down. So I was like, come on, Chris, just stop. And so he's like, I told you in there, you hoeing around, you doing all of this. And I'm like, no, I'm not. It's homecoming. I'm a college student. He was 40 years old. I was a college student. I was 19, going on 20. And by the time I got up, we got in the car, we had to ride to Columbia because we were staying in Columbia and I was going to school in Orangeburg. The longest 30-minute ride of my life. When we got to Columbia, he was like, so what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to go home, clean myself up, and go to sleep. So he was like, you need to go home, clean yourself up. We going out to dinner with some friends. I don't want to go out to do it with some friends. So at this time, I didn't want to be argumentative. So I was like, okay, I'm going to just go home, get cleaned up, get ready. We get home, we get in the house. And as I'm getting ready to get in the shower, he just goes across my face. And I'm like, okay. So I'm crying, trying to fight him back to get him out because he was bigger than me. And I finally get the bathroom door closed and I just break down crying in there. And I'm just like, God, okay, if you could just get me out of this, I ain't going back. And so he goes, after a while he goes, I go out of the bathroom to see what he had. He's gone. So I go to open the door and he's padlocked me in the house. Wow. And so I'm like, okay, I'm stuck in the house. So I just kind of stay in there, and I don't know. It had to be about 2, 3 in the morning. He comes in the house and he has these flowers and he got food and he was like, I'm so sorry. And I'm just like, are you serious? You just drugged me down the road and you just went across my face and look at my face. Like, do you think it's okay? So then I was like, you good? So I just want to go to sleep. So at this point, I'm telling him I want to go to sleep. And he was like, no, we don't have sex. And I'm like, no, I'm about to go to sleep. And in that moment, I thought because he was my boyfriend or the person I was with and he was providing for me, it was okay. And so he just turned over and I just laid there. And
so he raped you.
Basically.
Because that's what it is. I want for you guys that are listening, it does not matter if it's your boyfriend, if it's your husband, if he's providing for you, that's rape. Anytime that someone have sex with you and you do not want to have sex with them, that is considered rape. R-A-P-E, rape. That is all. Especially when they force themselves on you or you feel like you're obligated, because that happens so often with females. They feel like, well, I'm in this situation. You've already been physically assaulted. So if I don't, what's going to happen now? and he has padlocked you in the house. So we have to look at these things for what it really is, because this your story, I can almost push play. I've heard this story so much in private that it keeps matriculating publicly because nobody's hearing it. And when I say publicly, that's with individuals, because nobody's hearing these stories so that they can say, oh, wait a minute, that's not right. Or, oh, that's happening to me. I need to get out of here. But, because a lot of times men and women, let me say women too, they use manipulative tactics to make you feel like, oh, you have to be here. You have to be here. Nobody wants you. You can't go home. The shame and the guilt shows up, and it prevents people from breaking out of that chain, that box, that prison of abuse. And for you, went from physical to sexual abuse.
It did. And all I could do was like turn over and just cry. And I was like, God, I gotta get out of here. And so the next day, when he left, he padlocked me in. So the next day I kind of was like, okay, what I'm gonna do? So I just started cleaning up, washing clothes, and I was getting myself together. He came back and he was like, we're going out today. And it's basically you tell me what we're gonna do and I'm gonna just do it at this point. And so my friends, they was just kind of like, what's going on? So I was like, that's it, I'm good, it's cool. And a lot of my friends, I never let them see that part of me. It's only one friend. She is near and dear to my heart. She knows what happened. But if we go out, all my friends paid for it. Everybody get their hair done. If I get my hair done, everybody get their nails done. If he buying drinks for me, he buying drinks for everybody. He was that type of person. So all my friends was like, oh, okay, he's a good guy. And I'm just like, if only you knew our home life. And so we just went through it. And then he came home. I got dressed. We went out. At that time I was drinking, so I got drunk because I'm depressed. I'm going through it. And so we get back home. He goes back out. He locks me in the house. So I try to figure out, like, how can I get out the back door? So I try to get out the back door, and then I hear him pulling back up. So I ran back in the house, and I guess he figured out that I tried to get out the back door. So by now, the next day, he gets 2 pit bulls, and he know I'm scared of dogs. So he put 2 pit bulls in the back, and I'm padlocked in the front. So now I'm like, God, what am I going to do? So I was just like, I'm going to have to call home. Like, I got to call my uncles or somebody, knowing they'll come, knowing they're going to fuss, but they love me and they would never let anything happen to me. So I was like, okay, God, I'm going to call them. So I ended up calling one of my friends, and she came. And I ended up, he coming back, and I told him, I got to go. Like, I got to go. They need me at school, whatever. So she took me back with her. And when she took me back with her, I was like, I got to get out of there. Like, I can't be gone all day because he going to come looking for me. So I need to figure out a way while I'm out what I'm going to do. Like, so I took some stuff with me. I left it with her. She took it to her place. And so I got back. So that night, I had washed clothes or whatever. We had a good night. It was a good night, of course. And I went to sleep, and I never was a sleepwalker. And for some reason, I was sleepwalking. I dreamed I was using the bathroom, and I was using the bathroom in the basket of clean clothes. It was a part of trauma, I guess. And so the way he woke me up was he slapped me in my face, and he started cursing at me. He started yelling at me and calling me all kind of names. And I was like shocked, but I was like, oh my gosh, like a helpless child. And so he took all the clothes and he threw them on me. And he was like, you got to clean them up. And so like I started picking them up, cleaning them up. And then he just took me, he threw me on the bed, and then he had sex with me. Wow. And so I was like, God, this ain't my life. This ain't it. Like, if this is it, let me go now.
Wow.
Like, if this is my life, God, take me out of here, because I know this is not my life. And so I just laid there and cried. And even though I was crying, he didn't care. He was like, what you crying for? This, and I was like, okay, whatever. I'm going to just let him finish out. He finished. He got up. He took a shower. He went to sleep. I slept in the bathroom that night after I took my shower. And I just kind of got my thoughts together. And I was just like, I got to get out of here. And so I ended up calling my uncles. They came. They got me. Of course, when my uncles came, he was just like a whole, oh, it's nothing like that. And, trying to perceive himself to be a certain way. And so I was just like, all right, this is the game we're going to play. And so I was like, okay, guys. So I got out, and no, I didn't stay out. I went back. Because
that
I felt
happens
like,
so often, though.
yes, because I felt like you said, like he's my provider, he's this, and he called, I'm sorry, I love you, this, and that. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back. I called my cousins. I was like, let's ride up to Columbia. I'm gonna go back, see what he want to talk about, and then I'm gonna get my stuff while I'm there. On the way up there, he called me. We talked. He apologized. He told me he loved me. He never meant to hurt me. All these things. And so I was like, okay, we'll talk when I get there. It had to be about 8 or 9 o'clock. It was late. And so I kept calling. So I'm like, I know he ain't playing this game. Like, I don't call him. We supposed to meet. He ain't answering the phone. So I was like, well, forget it. Let's just go out. We went out. I ended up going back home. About 3 days later, one of my old friends from college, she called me. She's like, Chris got killed last night. What? And so I was like, what? All these emotions came over me, and I'm like, this can't be true. Like, even though he hurt me, even though he treated me that way, I still was like in disbelief. And so her and I was talking, she was like, you okay? And I was like, I guess. And so as I was running through all our conversations, I was like, maybe he was genuine. Maybe he felt like something was going to happen. Maybe he did really apologize and meant it what he was saying. And I was just like, God, that could have been me, because I was supposed to be in a car with him at the time when they robbed him, because he was a drug dealer. So they robbed him and they killed him. And I was supposed to be like, literally, he was at the location that we were supposed to meet at in the car waiting on me. And he didn't answer the phone because he had been killed. And so that was another part of trauma that built up on top of the sexual abuse and all that. So then I was in this place, and then I just dwindled down, and then I went into a place where it's like, okay, sex is my go-to, filling the void, because I feel like if you mistreat me, it's okay. If you do me wrong, it's okay. I'm with you, so I'm supposed to give you sex. Like, those parts of me became so heavy, and that's really when I started drinking really, really heavy.
Yeah. So and I'm glad you shared that, because a lot of times we cope with the pain with drugs, with alcohol, with getting your hair done, with spending money. See, coping mechanisms are different for every person, but because of the sexual violence, the sexual abuse, because it didn't start off as sexual abuse. Well, let me just back up a little bit, because and we're gonna wrap up, because we're gonna have to have a part 2 on this. We're gonna have to have a part 2, because he was, even though you were legally an adult, he was 20 years older than you. And what happens most of the time, men and women, because I cannot leave women out now. I cannot leave. They manipulate on the person. College students, you're in college, you're struggling, you are lacking emotionally already, and we'll talk about that on another show. And what happens is they come in being nice, buying things, and then the physical abuse, the verbal abuse, the sexual abuse happens. So, and that's something, and because they say they love you, they provide for you, that I call it that hamster in the wheel, it keeps turning. So we have to address these issues, because if we don't address these issues, how many more people that are listening today that will hear this are going through it now, or have gone through it, that now their families, their friends, because they become alcoholics, because they become drug addicts, because they become pill poppers, because they become very promiscuous, they look at them and say, oh, they doing this and they're acting this way. They're looking at the fruit, but they're not looking at the root. What caused this? Nobody grows up and says, well, I want to be a sex slave, or I want to be abused. Nobody grows up and says that. Nobody as a child says, oh, this is what I want to happen to me in life. So we have to address how to prevent this from happening before it happens. And then if you're in it, how to get out of it, because the feelings, the mindset of, oh, well, he said he was sorry, or she said she was sorry, or they're providing for me, they love me, they're giving me things to fill the emotional gap, to make up for them beating you or slapping you or abusing you. Because even now I see a lot of times it turns into sex trafficking. A lot of times it's not just a sexual abuse, it turns into, well, my friend wants you, so I'll take care of you, you do what I say. So look, we got to end this, because we have to end this. So I want to thank you for joining me. For our listeners, I want to thank you for joining us on this segment of sexual abuse, the effects in the African American family. And this is just going to be a series. I usually come once a month, but I think because there's so much information, I have had so many people reach out that want to share their stories, and we need to share this because we have incest in the families. We have it's so many dynamics to sexual abuse that affect people at a young age, that when they become older, I've heard younger, oh, well, she just fast. Well, people just don't become just fast. They don't just wake up and say they're fast. They've been touched. Children have been touched. That's a whole nother podcast, and we'll talk about that later. But Jerry Dunn, I want to thank you for coming on, being candid, sharing your story. I want to thank our listeners, and make sure, listen, I'm going to be posting that we're going to have some special podcasts up, because I have so many people that reached out that need to share their story. That's because this is a part of their healing. Sharing your story. The word says we overcome by the word and the blood of the word, the blood of the lamb, and the word of our testimony. So sharing your story, my friend used to say, take the stinger out the enemy. Woo. Tell it before he can tell it.
That's right.
So tell it before he can tell it on you. So thank you for listening to my Let's Talk Tara podcast. Make sure to join me every fourth Saturday, where we bring education, empowering, and inspiring information. Join me here live. If you have not already, make sure you follow me at Let's Talk Tara on all my social media platforms. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for sharing. And we will see you probably before next fourth Saturday.
Yes, ma'am.
So y'all listen out for us, and thank you guys for Jerry on this platform for coming on, sharing. Thank you.
See you guys later.
All right, so